From the beginning, Jungkook has shown that he is always there for Taehyung, no matter the situation. Even when it seems that Taehyung is on the verge of falling, Jungkook appears. He always accompanies him as if he were a natural extension of his life, as if he simply knew when he needs to be close. A very clear moment that many remember was that day when all the members were gathered trying to skate, between laughter and jokes. In the middle of that, Taehyung had several difficulties staying on his feet. It's not that he didn't know how to skate, but it was clear that he wasn't entirely comfortable. While the others laughed or tried not to fall, Jungkook stayed by his side without leaving him for a moment. He watched him, followed him closely, ready to react if something happened, with that calm that characterizes him when it comes to Taehyung. And although there were funny moments, the strongest thing was seeing how Jungkook never left him alone. Several times Taehyung was close to falling, and each time, Jungkook reacted before he hit the ground. He simply reached out his hand, and they continued as if it were the most normal thing in the world. This subtle and constant protection is one of the clearest signs of their relationship, which, although many want to define it only as friendship, shows something much deeper. Jungkook has that instinct that is activated only by him, something that is not seen the same way with anyone else, no matter how close they are. What there is between Taehyung doesn't need to be said out loud because it is present in his gestures, in the way he looks at each other, and in the way he accompanies each other even when no one else notices. It's a relationship that grew over time, built with simple moments like that day on skates, where caring for each other speaks louder than any declaration. And although things have changed now, with fewer public appearances and more individual responsibilities, the essence between them is still there. We know they're very focused on their work right now, especially with the new album in progress, where all the members are committed and surely facing many demands. That's why it's normal that we don't have as much recent news about them as a couple, but those who know their story understand that this doesn't mean distance. On the contrary, often the strongest moments are experienced away from the cameras, in private, in what they decide to keep just for themselves. And that has always been a characteristic of Taekook, their desire to protect what they have, to keep it real without having to explain it to the world. So while we patiently wait for some new shared moment, some sign, or some small instant that reminds us of what we already know, the best we can do is continue supporting them. Not only as artists we admire, but as people who have chosen to care for each other from the beginning. We know that Taekook doesn't need to be in the spotlight to remain real, because they've already shown us that their relationship is stronger than what appears. And even though they choose to keep many moments for themselves, we are here, watching from afar, silently celebrating each time they choose each other again and again. Every time we see Jungkook and Taehyung together, something special happens that can't be ignored. There are tender moments, others that make us laugh, and also moments that feel so natural it seems like no one else is there. One of those memories that always comes back is when they started dancing completely spontaneously and gracefully. It was one of those moments where the body reacts before the mind, where they simply let themselves go and ended up doing something that was not only fun, but also fun for both of them. That dance wasn't choreographed or something they were trying to show off as part of a show, it was something between them. A way of playing, of being silly without fear, knowing that the other would play along and make it even funnier. Seeing them act like this says a lot more about their relationship than people sometimes imagine. When one makes a joke, the other responds without thinking, and when they're together, everything seems to flow effortlessly. That relationship they have can't be faked, and that's what's most striking. Because even if there are people who want to deny the obvious or invent rumors to divert attention, the truth is that Taekook has a connection that feels real. In the way they look at each other, the way they look for each other, the way they react to each other regardless of who else is present. These details are what make many people certain that their bond goes deeper than what some dare to say out loud. And that's okay, because some things are felt more than explained. Taekook has that energy that can't be copied, and that's why every time they share a moment, no matter how short or simple, it stays with us. Like that dance where you could tell they didn't care if anyone saw them or if they were making fools of themselves. What mattered was that they were together, enjoying themselves and sharing something that only they understood. That freedom to be themselves only appears when you're with someone who accepts you completely. And Jungkook and Taehyung accept each other like that, with their oddities, with their way of expressing themselves, with their silences, and with their laughter. There are those who prefer to talk about Jungkook or mention the favorite as part of the story, and that's fine, everyone connects with what they want to see. But Taekook is something that goes beyond names or labels. It's something that is seen, felt, and remembered. There's no need to convince anyone because the proof is in every shared glance, in every small gesture, in every moment when they forget there are cameras around. They've shown on many occasions that their relationship isn't fleeting or just for show. And that's worth more than any direct statement anyone might be hoping for. So, as long as these moments between Jungkook and Taehyung continue to exist, as long as they continue to look at each other that way and care for each other the way they do, there's no way Taekook will disappear. Rumors, new chapters, distractions, or 1,000 other stories may come, but there are connections that simply cannot be broken. We'll be here to continue watching how they grow, how they transform, and how they stay strong. Because what they share is not only real, it's also beautiful. There are people who may see all of this as a simple game, as if it were part of a show or something staged for the cameras. But you just have to look closely, pay attention to the details, to notice that what happens between Taehyung and Jungkook goes beyond that. It's not acting. It's not a script. It's real. Because when they look at each other, when they touch, when they get close, regardless of who's watching, there's an energy that feels genuine. They don't need to say much for what's between them to be understood. They communicate in a different way, with gestures, with glances, with small caresses that don't make a sound but speak volumes. Taehyung has something that can't be copied or faked. That natural complicity, that connection that's noticeable even in the simplest moments. And that's what makes every interaction between them special, even if it only lasts a few seconds. It's as if everything else shuts down for a moment and it's just the two of them in their own world. Like that time they danced together, not caring if anyone was watching, not caring if they were making fools of themselves or if someone would misinterpret the situation. What mattered was that they were together, laughing, sharing something only they understood. That freedom, that way of being themselves without filters, only comes when you're with someone who knows you and accepts you just the way you are. One of the most interesting things about Taehyung and Jungkook's relationship is how they repeat certain gestures, as if they were part of their own language. They aren't random actions, they aren't things that happen by chance. They're patterns that repeat themselves every time they're around each other, as if their bodies were speaking for them. And that, even if it doesn't seem like it, says a lot. When a person always acts the same way with someone, when they repeat the same type of gesture naturally, it's because they feel comfortable, because they're not thinking about whether it looks good or bad, it just comes naturally to them. In Taekook's case, those couple gestures are very clear. They touch each other without fear, without hesitation. Sometimes they settle into each other, searching for each other with their eyes, or remaining silent while they're together, as if that were enough. And the most striking thing is that it doesn't seem rehearsed or awkward. Everything flows. You can tell there's trust, there's a shared history, there's something that goes beyond friendship or what anyone could say. Because looking at someone out of habit isn't the same as looking at them with affection. Being by someone's side out of commitment isn't the same as wanting to be there just because, without reasons or excuses. And when they're together, you can tell they're enjoying the moment. They're not acting, they're not following a script. They're just being themselves. And that shows in small things, like the way they laugh when the other says something silly, or how they support each other without anyone asking. Sometimes, you just need to see the way someone cares for the other to understand that there are feelings involved. In the case of Taehyung and Jungkook, that's evident. They're always attentive to each other. There's always a hand ready to hold, a smile that appears at just the right moment, a look that seeks to express what words can't. And it's not about exaggerating or romanticizing everything. It's about observing carefully and recognizing what's there. Because there are things that can't be hidden, even if you try. Like when Jungkook stares at him without speaking, or when Taehyung fixes his hair without being asked. Those details say more than any speech. They are signs that, repeated over and over, end up building a story. A story that many call Taekook, and that others also recognize as JUNGKOok, although it's not the same. Because the truth is that there are many ways to see these relationships, but in the end, what's clear is that there is something special between them.